When God is about to help you, something begins to stir in the unseen realm long before it manifests in the visible world. And the first sign is not comfort but awareness. You suddenly become conscious of how fragile your own strength truly is. You realize that the methods that once worked no longer produce results. And this is not punishment, it is preparation. God allows the ground beneath your confidence to shift so that your trust can be transferred from yourself to Him. The moment your soul becomes alert to its dependence on God, help is already on the way. Heaven does not move when you are proud of your ability. Heaven moves when your spirit bows and says, I cannot do this alone. Another sign that God is about to help you is the unusual resistance you encounter when you decide to move forward in obedience. Doors that should open easily seem to resist you, and people who once supported you become strangely silent or even oppositional. Do not misinterpret this resistance as rejection. Resistance often intensifies just before divine intervention because unseen forces recognize that a turning point is near. When God is preparing to lift you, pressure increases, not decreases. This pressure is not meant to crush you, but to compress you into a shape that can carry the blessing without breaking. You will also notice that your inner life becomes louder than your external noise. When God is about to help you, He draws you inward. You may find yourself withdrawing from distractions you once loved. The appetite for shallow conversations fades, and a hunger for meaning awakens. Silence becomes sacred, and reflection becomes necessary. This is not isolation, this is alignment. God pulls you away from the crowd not to abandon you, but to tune your heart to His direction. Help begins with clarity, and clarity is born in stillness. Another unmistakable sign is the stirring of faith that defies logic. Circumstances may look worse, but hope becomes strangely stubborn. You cannot explain why you believe things will change, but something deep within refuses to surrender to despair. This is not denial, this is divine assurance. When God is about to help you, He deposits conviction before evidence. Faith rises before the breakthrough arrives because God strengthens the root before He reveals the fruit. That quiet confidence you feel is not self-generated. It is placed there by God to sustain you until the visible answer arrives. When God is preparing to help you, He often exposes false supports, relationships, systems, habits, or identities you leaned on begin to fail you. This can feel painful and unfair, but it is an act of mercy. God refuses to share His glory with unstable foundations. He removes what cannot sustain you so that you will be fully supported by Him alone. If something you depended on is collapsing, do not panic. God is making room for something stronger, purer, and unshakable. You may also experience a heightened sensitivity to truth. Things you once tolerated begin to disturb your conscience. Compromise becomes uncomfortable, and excuses lose their power. This is not condemnation, this is awakening. When God is about to help you, He refines your discernment. He sharpens your moral vision so you can recognize what aligns with His will and what undermines it. Help does not come to a careless heart. It comes to a heart that is alert, teachable, and willing to be corrected. There are moments when God's help announces itself through delay. You pray, you wait, and nothing seems to change. But delay is not denial. Delay is often divine arrangement. God sees intersections you cannot see, timings you cannot calculate, and consequences you cannot predict. When He withholds immediate answers, He is not ignoring you. He is positioning everything to converge at the precise moment that will bring maximum transformation. Trust the delay because God never arrives late. Another sign is the emergence of unexpected courage. Fear does not completely disappear, but it loses its authority over your decisions. You begin to move forward even while trembling. This courage is not recklessness, it is obedience empowered by trust. When God is about to help you, He gives you the strength to act before you feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it is a response to divine prompting. Courage appears when help is near. You will notice that your prayers change. They become less about controlling outcomes and more about surrendering to God's wisdom. You stop demanding explanations and start seeking alignment. This shift is crucial. God helps those who trust His character even when they do not understand His strategy. When your prayers mature from desperation to trust, you are standing at the threshold of divine assistance. Sometimes God signals His help by reminding you of past victories. Memories of how He carried you through previous trials resurface in your mind. This is not nostalgia, it is reinforcement. God strengthens your present faith by recalling His past faithfulness. He is saying, if I did it before, I can do it again. These reminders are anchors that keep your hope steady while you wait for the next manifestation of help. You may also experience an unusual peace that does not match your circumstances. This peace is not passivity, it is confidence in God's sovereignty. When chaos surrounds you, but calm settles within you, it is a sign that God is actively involved. Peace is often the atmosphere of divine intervention. It guards your heart from panic and preserves your strength for what is coming. When God is about to help you, He may also ask you to release something precious. This surrender is not loss, it is exchange. God never asks for something without intending to give something greater in return. The letting go may feel costly, but what you receive will carry eternal weight. Trust the exchange, because God's economy is governed by abundance, not scarcity. Another powerful indicator is the alignment of small details. Seemingly insignificant events begin to connect in meaningful ways. Conversations, opportunities, and insights line up with precision that cannot be explained by chance. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. God orchestrates details to assure you that He is involved in your journey. Pay attention to the small things. They often reveal the magnitude of what God is about to do. You may also sense a call to greater responsibility. God does not help you simply to relieve you. He helps you to elevate you. With assistance comes assignment. When God is about to help you, He prepares you to steward the outcome wisely. He stretches your character so that the blessing does not become a burden. Growth precedes glory, and maturity precedes manifestation. There are times when God's help is announced through discomfort with the familiar. What once felt safe now feels restrictive. This restlessness is not dissatisfaction, it is divine prompting. God stirs your spirit to move beyond comfort into purpose. Help often requires transition, and transition requires courage. Do not cling to what no longer aligns with where God is leading you. You may also notice that your capacity to forgive expands. Grudges lose their grip and resentment begins to dissolve. This is significant because unforgiveness blocks the flow of divine help. When God is about to intervene, He clears your heart of toxins that would contaminate the blessing. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is spiritual readiness. Another sign is the strengthening of your resolve to live with integrity even when no one is watching. When God is about to help you publicly, He first examines you privately. Integrity is the currency of divine trust. God entrusts greater influence to those who honor Him in hidden places. If you feel compelled to correct private compromises, rejoice. Help is near. You may also experience a renewed sense of purpose that transcends personal gain. Your vision expands beyond survival to significance. God's help is never shallow, it is transformational. He does not merely fix situations, He shapes destinies. When your desires align with a higher calling, you are positioned to receive help that impacts not only you, but those around you. Sometimes God prepares you for help by allowing you to reach the end of your strategies. You exhaust your plans, your connections, and your resources, and you stand with empty hands. This emptiness is sacred. It creates space for God to act without competition. When you have nothing left to rely on but Him, you are perfectly positioned for divine intervention. You may also find that your words carry new authority. When you speak, there is weight behind your declarations, not because of volume, but because of conviction. God fills your mouth when He is about to move on your behalf. Speak with faith, not fear. Your words see and align your environment with God's intention. Another indicator is the emergence of patience that surprises you. You no longer rush outcomes or force doors open. You trust God's timing with calm assurance. This patience is not resignation, it is confidence in divine orchestration. When God is about to help you, He teaches you to wait without worry. You will notice that lessons you once resisted now make sense. Understanding dawns where confusion once reigned. This revelation is preparation. God equips you with insight so that when help arrives, you recognize it and respond appropriately. Insight prevents misuse of blessing. There are moments when God signals His help through the encouragement of unexpected voices. Someone speaks a word that resonates deeply with your spirit, confirming what God has been whispering to you privately. These confirmations are not replacements for faith. They are reinforcements. God uses people to remind you that you are not alone. When God is about to help you, He also refines your expectations. You stop insisting on how the answer must come and remain open to His creativity. God's solutions often surpass human imagination. Flexibility allows you to receive what you did not know to ask for. You may sense a deepening reverence for God's presence. Awe replaces familiarity, and gratitude replaces entitlement. This reverence attracts divine favor. God draws near to those who honor Him with humility. When your heart bows, heaven responds. Another sign is the strengthening of your inner discipline. You become more intentional with your time, your thoughts, and your actions. God prepares you to sustain the help He is about to give. Discipline is not restriction, it is empowerment. You may also feel compelled to give generously even when resources feel limited. This generosity is a declaration of trust. God often releases help through NDs that are open, not clenched. Giving aligns you with the flow of divine provision. When God is about to help you, He sharpens your focus. Distractions lose their appeal, and priorities become clear. Focus is essential because divine help requires discernment to recognize and act upon. You will notice that fear no longer dictates your narrative. It may still whisper, but it no longer commands. God's presence drowns out fear's voice. Courage becomes your default response. There is also a sign that appears in the form of resilience. Setbacks no longer define you, they refine you. You rise quicker, stronger, wiser. This resilience is evidence that God is fortifying you for what lies ahead. When God is about to help you, He awakens gratitude in advance. You find yourself thankful not only for what has happened, but for what is about to happen. Gratitude is prophetic. It speaks of trust in God's faithfulness. You may also experience a renewed commitment to prayer that feels less like obligation and more like communion. Prayer becomes a place of strength rather than desperation. God meets you there and prepares you for the next step. Another indicator is the alignment of your values with God's principles. Success is redefined, and fulfillment is measured by faithfulness rather than applause. This alignment ensures that help leads to purpose, not pride. You may feel a call to courageously confront truths you once avoided. Honesty becomes liberating. God's help thrives in transparency. When you stop hiding, you start healing. When God is about to help you, He increases your capacity to love without condition. Love becomes your strength, not your vulnerability. This love reflects God's nature and attracts His favor. You will notice that your perspective shifts from immediate relief to long-term transformation. God's help is comprehensive. He addresses roots, not just symptoms. There is also a deepening trust in God's character. Even when outcomes are uncertain, His goodness is unquestioned. This trust anchors you to transition. You may find that your testimony begins forming before the breakthrough occurs. You can articulate what God is teaching you even while waiting. This awareness prepares you to steward the story well. When God is about to help you, He aligns your will with His purpose. Desire and destiny converge. This convergence releases power. You will sense that you are standing on the edge of change, not because circumstances have shifted yet, but because your spirit is ready. Readiness is the doorway through which help enters. And in that moment, when everything within you is aligned with trust, obedience, humility, and expectation, the unseen becomes unstoppable. The impossible becomes accessible, and the help of God moves towards you with precision, power, and purpose, unfolding in ways that exceed your imagination and reshape your destiny as you continue to stand, listen, and believe without wavering. When God is about to help you, He often begins by dismantling the illusion that you're in control, because true help cannot coexist with self-deception. You may feel exposed, as if the masks you once wore no longer protect you. This exposure is not humiliation, it is liberation. God strips away false identities so that His power can rest on who you truly are. What you lose in appearance, you gain in authority. When you no longer need to pretend, you become available for divine assistance. There are moments when God's help announces itself through a burden you cannot shake. A responsibility presses on your spirit, not as fear but as urgency. You feel compelled to rise, to act, to prepare, even though nothing has changed outwardly. This burden is not anxiety, it is assignment. God places weight on your heart when He's about to move through your hands. Do not ignore this stirring. It is heaven signaling that you are being entrusted with something greater than comfort. When God is preparing to help you, He often rearranges your priorities. What once felt urgent loses importance, and what truly matters demands your attention. Time becomes precious, and distractions feel costly. This shift is not accidental. God sharpens your focus because help requires alignment. Divine intervention is not random. It flows through order, intention, and obedience. You may notice that your tolerance for spiritual emptiness disappears. Superficial encouragement no longer satisfies you. You hunger for truth that penetrates, for words that carry weight, for direction that anchors your soul. This hunger is evidence that God is drawing you deeper. Help does not come to a satisfied heart, it comes to a hungry one. Hunger creates capacity, and capacity invites fulfillment. Another sign that God is about to help you is the way obstacles lose their intimidation. They may still exist, but they no longer dominate your imagination. You stop magnifying problems and start magnifying God's power. Perspective shifts everything. When God lifts your vision, obstacles shrink. Help begins when you see rightly. There are times when God allows misunderstanding to surround you. People misinterpret your intentions, question your motives, and doubt your direction. This can be painful, but it serves a purpose. God teaches you to seek His approval above all others. When you are free from the need for validation, you become free to receive divine help without interference. God strengthens those who stand firm even when misunderstood. You may also experience an unusual clarity about what must end. Certain cycles, habits, or patterns reveal themselves as barriers to your future. This clarity is not regret, it is revelation. God shows you what cannot continue because He is making space for what must begin. Endings are often the gateway to help. When God is about to help you, He may allow you to face your fears directly, not to overwhelm you, but to prove to you that fear has lost its authority. You confront what once paralyzed you and discover that God's presence is greater than your dread. Courage is born in confrontation, and help follows courage. You will notice that your internal dialogue changes. The voice of defeat grows faint, replaced by conviction and resolve. You speak to yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with assurance. This transformation of thought is critical. God's help often travels through renewed thinking. When your mind aligns with truth, your life follows. Another powerful indicator is the restoration of joy that does not depend on outcomes. You smile not because everything is resolved, but because you trust God's character. This joy strengthens you. It becomes fuel for endurance. God often restores joy before He resolves circumstances, because joy sustains faith while you wait. You may find yourself compelled to revisit promises you once abandoned. Dreams that seemed unrealistic resurface with fresh relevance. God revives dormant visions when He is about to help you fulfill them. What you thought was over was only waiting for the right season. God's timing redeems what delay could not destroy. When God is preparing to help you, He deepens your understanding of sacrifice. You realize that every meaningful breakthrough carries a cost. But this cost no longer feels like loss, it feels like investment. You give willingly because you trust the return. God honors sacrifices made in faith, not those made in fear. There are moments when God signals His help by strengthening your boundaries. You learn to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. Bound. Aries protect purpose. God helps those who guard what He has entrusted to them. When your life is ordered, divine help flows freely. You may also experience an awakening of compassion. You become more aware of others' struggles, more sensitive to pain beyond your own. This compassion is not distraction, it is preparation. God's help often expands through hearts that reflect His care for others. Blessings grow when shared. When God is about to help you, He refines your speech. Complaints lose their grip, and gratitude shapes your language. You speak life where you once spoke despair. Words matter. They create atmospheres. God moves in environments saturated with faith-filled declarations. Another sign is the restoration of discipline in private devotion. You seek God not because you need something urgently, but because you desire closeness. This shift transforms your relationship with Him. Help flows naturally from intimacy. When connection deepens, provision follows. You may notice that your endurance increases. Situations that once exhausted you now strengthen you. This endurance is evidence of inner fortification. God builds stamina before He releases acceleration. What you can endure determines what you can sustain. When God is preparing to help you, He often invites you to trust Him with outcomes you cannot influence. You release control over results and commit to obedience. This surrender unlocks peace. God intervenes where trust replaces anxiety. You will also sense an alignment between your actions and your beliefs. Integrity becomes non-negotiable. You live what you profess. This congruence empowers your faith. God's help rests on lives that reflect truth consistently. There are times when God allows you to witness small breakthroughs as previews of what is coming. These glimpses are encouragements, not the full measure. They remind you that movement begun. Celebrate them without settling for less than what God has promised. When God is about to help you, He expands your capacity to wait without bitterness. Waiting becomes active, purposeful, and hopeful. You prepare while you wait. Preparation is faith in motion. You may also experience a renewed reverence for God's sovereignty. You acknowledge that His ways surpass your understanding. This humility attracts grace. God helps those who trust His wisdom above their own. Another indicator is the strengthening of your spiritual resilience. You recover quickly from disappointment. You refuse to be defined by setbacks. This resilience is forged in trust. God strengthens those who refuse to surrender their hope. When God is preparing to help you, He sharpens your discernment regarding opportunities. You recognize doors that appear attractive but lead nowhere, and you wait for doors that align with purpose. Discernment protects destiny. You may find that your sense of identity stabilizes. You are no longer swayed by praise or criticism. You know who you are before God. This stability allows you to carry responsibility without losing yourself. God helps those who are secure in Him. There are moments when God's help is preceded by a call to obedience that seems small. A simple step, a quiet decision, an act of faith that appears insignificant. Do not underestimate these moments. Small obediences unlock great interventions. When God is about to help you, He aligns your heart with gratitude even before the answer arrives. You thank Him not out of obligation, but out of trust. Gratitude accelerates manifestation. You may also experience a deepening sense of peace about the future. Uncertainty no longer terrifies you. You trust that whatever unfolds will be guided by God's wisdom. This peace guards your heart and sharpens your focus. Another sign is the awakening of courage to confront injustice, dishonesty, or fear. You speak truth with love and stand firm without aggression. God's help empowers righteous courage. When God is preparing to help you, He increases your sensitivity to His guidance. You recognize promptings quickly and respond without delay. Obedience becomes instinctive. This responsiveness positions you for timely intervention. You will notice that your faith matures. It is no longer dependent on signs or constant reassurance. You trust God's presence even in silence. Mature faith attracts profound help. There is also a shift in how you view challenges. You see them as platforms for God's power rather than barriers to progress. This perspective transforms struggle into opportunity. When God is about to help you, He often invites you to rest in Him. Not in activity, but trust-filled rest. You release frantic striving and operate from assurance. Rest is faith expressed quietly. You may find that your vision expands beyond immediate relief to lasting impact. You think generationally, purposefully, eternally. God's help is never small. It is designed to echo beyond you. And as all these signs converge, clarity, courage, humility, discipline, faith, peace, you stand at the edge of divine movement, not because circumstances have already changed, but because you have been prepared to receive what God is about to release, knowing that when help comes, it will not merely rescue you from where you are, but carry you into what you were created for, sustained by trust, anchored in obedience, and empowered by unwavering confidence in God's perfect will and unstoppable power. When God is about to help you, He often begins by testing your vision, not to frustrate you, but to strengthen you. He places obstacles in your path, challenges in your environment, and doubts in your mind, not to block you, but to reveal whether your eyes, refixed on Him or on fleeting circumstances. If you can hold fast when nothing appears to be changing, if your hope refuses to bow to fear, then you are walking on the threshold of divine intervention. God's help does not come to the unprepared. It comes to those whose faith remains unshaken, whose hearts are immovable, and whose vision sees beyond the temporary. You will also notice a peculiar strengthening of your inner resolve. Challenges that once disheartened, you now ignite determination. When God is about to help, He builds a resilience that is invisible to the world, but unbreakable within. You begin to understand that endurance is not merely surviving, it is positioning. Every trial, every sleepless night, every moment of uncertainty has been a preparation for a breakthrough that cannot be hurried. Your resilience becomes a signal to heaven that you are ready to receive what only God can provide. Another unmistakable sign is that your prayers begin to transform. They evolve from pleading for relief to aligning with God's wisdom. You no longer ask Him simply to remove obstacles. You seek His guidance, His timing, and His purpose in every situation. God honors those who seek alignment with His will, not just intervention. When your heart begins to pray in harmony with the divine plan, the universe itself begins to rearrange, preparing the way for the assistance that is imminent. God also begins to illuminate the shadows in your life. Past mistakes, hidden fears, and unspoken doubts rise to the surface, not to shame you, but to purify you. Divine help does not enter a life weighed down by hidden burdens. God clears the path by revealing what must be released, corrected, or surrendered. This illumination may feel uncomfortable, but it is sacred. It is the refining fire that ensures His help produces lasting change rather than temporary relief. You may also find that doors open unexpectedly, but in ways that are subtle at first. A conversation, a message, a chance encounter. These are often the soft whispers of divine orchestration. When God is about to help you, He begins to shift circumstances before the breakthrough is fully visible. Pay attention to the small things, for they are the breadcrumbs of divine guidance. What appears coincidental is actually deliberate, and recognizing it prepares you to step fully into the help that is coming. Another powerful indicator is a growing capacity to embrace uncertainty without fear. When God is about to act, the outcome is often beyond human comprehension. The path ahead may be unclear, and yet you feel an unshakable confidence that all is under God's control. This confidence is not arrogance, it is the quiet assurance that your life is held by a power greater than any challenge, and that what is coming is far greater than what you can imagine. Fear diminishes, not because danger is gone, but because the presence of God overshadows it. You will notice a new alignment of your desires with God's purpose. What once felt urgent now seems trivial. What once seemed impossible now appears essential. God's help flows to those whose hearts beat in rhythm with His will. When your longing for significance, justice, or fulfillment aligns with the divine plan, you become a vessel ready to carry what only God can release. Desire and destiny converge, and this convergence is the precursor to visible intervention. When God is about to help, He often amplifies your capacity to act in faith. Small acts of obedience take on tremendous weight. What appears insignificant to the eye carries power in the realm of the Spirit. God multiplies faithfulness in ways you cannot yet measure. You discover that your simplest acts, choosing integrity over compromise, offering kindness when ignored, remaining steadfast when tested, become the channels through which miracles flow. Every obedient step becomes a foundation for the help that is imminent. Another unmistakable sign is that God heightens your awareness of divine timing. You begin to notice that nothing happens prematurely or late. Every event, every encounter, every message unfolds according to a rhythm orchestrated by God. Impatience fades, and you learn to rest in His timing. Help often arrives not when you demand it, but precisely when you are spiritually and mentally prepared to receive it. Timing is a form of divine wisdom, and understanding it positions you for maximum impact. You may also feel a compelling pull toward generosity and service. God prepares your heart to receive by directing your hands outward. He reminds you that blessing is never just for yourself. Those who are about to receive divine help are often called to become channels of blessing to others. Your willingness to give, even when resources are scarce, signals readiness to receive abundance. Help flows most powerfully through hearts that are generous, not grasping. Another sign is the increasing clarity of your purpose. Confusion that once clouded your decisions dissipates, replaced by a sharp, unwavering sense of direction. You begin to understand not only what must be done, but why it matters. God helps those who are prepared to act with purpose and precision. When your mission is clear, every step you take aligns with the flow of divine assistance. You may notice an unusual calm in the midst of chaos. Circumstances may rage, crises may loom, yet your spirit remains undisturbed. This peace is a hallmark of divine presence. It is not passive. It is the assurance that God is at work, that nothing escapes His notice, and that the help you need is already in motion. Peace in turmoil is a prelude to transformation. It is the quiet before the surge of divine intervention. When God is preparing to help, He often awakens a sense of audacious expectation. You no longer hesitate to hope boldly, to speak confidently, or to envision outcomes that exceed human limitations. Bold expectation is a form of faith that attracts divine response. The greater your courage to believe, the more expansive the help that arrives. God does not favor timid hearts. He moves powerfully when anticipation is unshaken. You may also sense a refinement of your character. Patience, humility, and resilience become more pronounced. God's help is always aligned with growth, and He strengthens the inner life before altering external circumstances. Your character becomes the vessel through which blessings flow. The preparation may be unseen, but its effects are profound. When help comes, it does so through a person ready to steward it wisely. Another indicator is the awakening of discernment regarding relationships. You begin to recognize those who are aligned with your destiny and those who are not. God often clears your circle before He expands your influence. Trust those whom He retains close, and release those who serve only as distractions. Divine help flows most freely through focused, harmonious connections. When God is about to help, He may also illuminate opportunities that were previously invisible. Paths that seem closed now appear as gateways, and choices that once seemed confusing become clear. Awareness expands, and your capacity to act decisively grows. Divine guidance precedes action. Clarity prepares you to move with authority when help arrives. You will notice that your prayers begin to deepen, carrying not just requests, but surrender and alignment. The language of your heart shifts from desperation to expectancy. God honors those whose prayers reflect trust in His wisdom rather than insistence on personal timing. The depth of your communion with God often determines the magnitude of the help that is delivered. Another unmistakable sign is that obstacles become temporary teachers rather than permanent barriers. Every challenge, delay, or resistance carries a lesson intended to refine your spirit. You begin to see trials as necessary preparation, understanding that what shapes you spiritually also shapes the environment for divine assistance. God's help is never separated from the transformation it produces within you. When God is about to help, He heightens your sensitivity to His leading. You recognize subtle promptings, shifts in circumstances, and quiet nudges that direct your decisions. Obedience to these promptings multiplies the effectiveness of divine intervention. Your willingness to respond immediately, even in small matters, opens the door to monumental change. You may also experience a sharpening of your gratitude. Even in moments of waiting, your heart finds reason to give thanks. Gratitude positions your spirit to receive and magnifies every act of divine favor. When your heart is thankful in advance, God's help is accelerated. For thanksgiving aligns you with His abundant provision. Another sign is the alignment of your inner thoughts with divine truth. Self-doubt, worry, and anxiety diminish as confidence in God's promises grows. Your mental and spiritual alignment creates a fertile environment for blessings to flourish. God's help is most powerful when it is welcomed by a mind at peace and a heart in harmony with His will. When God is preparing to help, He often orchestrates moments of unexpected encouragement. Words from others, signs in nature, or sudden insights serve to strengthen your resolve. These confirmations are not mere coincidences. They are divine affirmations that the breakthrough is near. Notice them, receive them, and let them fuel your faith. You will also sense a subtle awakening of courage to confront the unfamiliar. God often moves through uncharted territory, and the willingness to step forward despite uncertainty signals readiness. Courage attracts divine favor because it demonstrates trust in God's guidance over human apprehension. Another indicator is a transformation of your perspective on limitations. What once appeared as barriers now become stepping stones. Constraints are no longer seen as hindrances, but as instruments for demonstrating God's power. When you embrace limitations with faith, you position yourself to witness help, that surpasses human expectation. When God is about to help you, He often stirs a persistent hope that refuses to fade. Circumstances may challenge you, delays may test you, yet an unshakable anticipation of divine intervention grows within your soul. This hope is not passive, it is active expectation rooted in the knowledge that God's promises are steadfast. Hope is the signal of readiness, and readiness invites manifestation. You may also notice a compelling desire to prepare the environment for what is coming. You organize, plan, and act in alignment with God's guidance, not out of anxiety, but in obedience. Preparation multiplies opportunity, and God honors those who ready themselves for His arrival. Another sign is the increasing sensitivity to the needs of others. God prepares you to receive by preparing you to give. Blessing flows most powerfully through hearts attuned to service. Your willingness to extend compassion, resources, and encouragement creates channels through which divine assistance can expand. When God is preparing to help you, He strengthens your faith in unseen possibilities. You begin to trust not only what is visible, but also what is promised. The invisible realm becomes more tangible to your spirit, and expectation becomes your natural posture. Faith in the unseen attracts the manifestation of God's help in ways that surpass human calculation. And as these signs converge, resilience, clarity, courage, discernment, alignment, and expectation, you stand not merely at the edge of hope, but on the threshold of God's movement. The heavens are stirred, circumstances are being arranged, and divine power is mobilizing. What you have been preparing for, what you have been trusting, praying, and surrendering to is now ready to intersect with your life. God's help is not distant, delayed, or partial. It is imminent, precise, and transformative, ready to lift you beyond what you have ever imagined into the fullness of purpose, provision, and power that only He can orchestrate. Now hear me clearly. The moment of God's help is nearer than you think. The signs are all around you, in your endurance, in your hunger for truth, in the stirring of your faith, in the courage that rises even when fear whispers. But God's help will not simply arrive while you remain passive. He calls you to awaken, to examine your life with unwavering honesty, and to prepare your heart for the fullness of His purpose. Ask yourself, where have I relied on my own strength when I should have relied on Him? What habits, distractions, or compromises have clouded the clarity of my spirit? God's help begins when you stand willing, unshaken, and ready to let go of everything that hinders your alignment with His will. Now is the time to renew your purpose. To live not by the fleeting opinions of the world, but by the eternal wisdom and guidance of God. To speak boldly, act faithfully, and love relentlessly. Do not settle for survival when God has designed you for significance. Do not shrink back in fear when He has placed courage within you. This is your invitation to step fully into the life He has prepared, to embrace the assignments He has placed before you, and to cultivate the heart that will carry His blessings without compromise. Every trial you have faced, every season of waiting, every moment of struggle has been shaping you for this divine moment. Recognize it, embrace it, walk in it. I challenge you now to rise with unwavering conviction, to align your heart with God's purpose, and to live in a posture of readiness for His help. Let your faith no longer be casual but fervent, your trust no longer hesitant but unwavering, and your obedience no longer partial but whole. God is calling you to a higher standard of expectation, to a deeper life of faith, and to a fullness of purpose that cannot be shaken. Stand firm, seek Him earnestly. Let your spirit be refined, your vision be clarified, and your heart be ignited. Believe, expect, and prepare, for God's help is coming. Not in whispers, not in half measures, but with a power and purpose that will move mountains, open doors, and transform your life in ways beyond imagination. Walk closer to Him now. Hold fast to faith. Align every thought, every action, and every intention with the God who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly above all that you ask or think. Let your life become a living testimony of trust, obedience, and divine empowerment. Stand, move, and live in the reality that God's help is not only promised, it is inevitable. Let your heart awaken to His power. Let your spirit embrace His purpose. And let your life shine with the undeniable evidence that when God moves, nothing can stand in His way.